Let me see. Let me stand up. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Last time I felt nervous like this, the day I got married. This is my first time really speaking in front of a group like this, and basically, I'm explain things I've been through and how I got to this point. Um, First, I want to say I'm the youngest of four. I'm from York City. Grew up in the house, so my mom was a single parent. So I felt like, growing up, I still do, that I'm a black sheep up to my family. And out of my mom kids and my grandma and grandkids, I was the first one, to be incarcerated. Even, the things I've been through. So, well, I'm I'm nervous.
Give him some grace, y'all. Give him some grace.
But I say, going to school, I felt like I was bullied a lot. For ones that don't know, on my right arm, I got skin graft. I've been burned by hot water while I was 18 months. So I always been quiet, been a loner, and it took one day at a time. But as I was going to school, I was get picked on. I was always walk around like this with my arm behind my back, and so I've been picked on a lot, been bullied, and one day I stood up to that bully in front of like half the school. I won. So after that situation I've been through, uh, I felt better. I say that. I felt better. I stopped hiding my arm, and as I went through school and everything, I had been expelled for fighting. So that led to alternative school. So in alternative school, everybody's there for being in trouble. So, in situations like that, that's all you're gonna be around is trouble. And the teacher only do so much. So after, attending alternative school and everything, one thing led to another from being, out of school at that time. And what changed, what, once my life changed, it was 2005. I think it was February something, but it was Super Bowl day. And the Eagles playing against the Patriots. So on that night, an older person by the name of Karan, asked me to run to the store with him real quick. And, just to get snacks and everything for, Super Bowl game. So, I took the ride with him. As we got to the store, I sat in the car as he went in the store. So I said uh, about 15, 20 seconds, I get out the car going to. As I was in the store, he's behind the counter beating up the employee and taking everything that he could. Now, I never been, told this prior time before it happened. So I'm standing there like shocked. So as he ran out the store, I ran. And I ran back to where I came from. And all to let you know, it was snowing that day. So the police seen footprints that led back to the house. So they had a house around it, and I came out. They charged me. I had a fatigue jacket on, so they knew from the store, from the video footage. So they charged me. I was 17 at the time, and they charged me as an adult. So my mother bailed me out, and at that time I was still going back to school, and I caught another charge for burglary. In that situation, that was my choice. And what led to that choice too was things I didn't have growing up, and single parent home. So, being the youngest, it's like the oldest one come before you, and sometimes you just, you get the end meets when it comes to things. So I just felt like I needed more. So that's it. That decision I made right there was, that was on me. So that led to, I was on bail at the time, and I caught a new charge. But they didn't charge me as an adult. They kept it juvenile. So as my process was going on for my robbery charge that I was on bail for, um, the detectives, they asked me. They know from the video footage that I was just there. So they asked me, who was the guy that's behind the counter, and I didn't give them that information. And if I would have given that information, I'd have went to boot camp for 6 months, and went had that felony on my record. So
Growing up, how we did, tattling isn't a thing we would have to deal with, not only the streets. If he would have gave that name up, we would have had to deal with the streets. Not only the cops did we have to deal with growing up. It was everything else that was going on. And how we grew up, cops didn't have our best interest. Especially not when you always fit the description. They don't care what you're going through or why you did it or how you ended up there. You are guilty already, isn't how you look. So, going through that, he couldn't actually just say, oh, well, this is this man, this is his name, because it would have made his situation a whole lot worse. And he didn't have any options. We didn't have any options growing up as two kids in a broken family in a broken home with multiple children. We met when you were 8.
yeah, about 7.
Yeah,
Just
I was
around that
6.
bracket. Couldn't stand her.
See where we're at now, though, right? But I was 6, he was 7. So we've been in each other's life for years. Years. I lived in his house from the time I was 6 up until I was about 12. And my dad worked on homes at the time. So my dad was working on his mom's house. My mom worked 2 jobs. So wherever my dad worked, we lived in the house until he was done. And for him, it was just him, so it was a long process. But how we grew up, we kind of looked out for each other. You fend for yourself, but you look out for each other in the same sense. So we stuck together ever since then. We fought. I would beat him up sometimes.
Yeah, you're right.
He hated me. But that's kind of how our story began, because God had a plan for us in this entire time. Not for us to just make it through this, but to make it through it together. And there wasn't many people that wanted us together. There wasn't many people in our family or even around us that could stand our relationship. So we had to fight through this. We had to fight through being together. We had to fight through trying to see each other. And there was times where, as he was getting older, and realizing that he's the youngest and he had to fend for himself in a single home, that he would be out in the streets and I would see him and I'd be like, give me a ride on your bike right now. He'd get me on his bike on his handlebars, and even through all of it, we still stuck together. I was the aggressor then, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yes, I love this girl, man. I love her so much. Yeah, she changed a lot when it come to me. I guess. Yeah. As you was saying, growing up, single parent home. My mom, she worked. She did the best she can do, and she worked the third shift. So when she went to work at night, my oldest brothers, their names Lamont and Lamar, they twins, and they was just the life of the party at a young age. So I always had to stay in my room while they had company. So, I was exposed to certain things too in my household when my mom was at work. So, growing up, I'm like, oh, I want to be like these guys. And, it's a lot of excitement at the same time, so, but it wasn't good influence. So, basically, going through what I went through, it led to certain things. And, sometimes you go through things you got to learn from and, move from that. So, back to what I was saying about, me being on bail and going through my process. I never, told the authorities the God name. So they sentenced me to 3 to 6 years in the state penitentiary. So being in jail is a different world. And, you know, I never, like, how can I say this? I never was brought up, not liking somebody from, the skinner, the color of their skin. Like, I'm a loving person. So when I was exposed to the state prison, everything is just segregated, from like every race. So like my circle, it would be another black guy, be a Puerto Rican, be a white person, and that was like my circle. Some people, being incarcerated, they don't like that. So I didn't care, cause I always want to be myself. And just because of my situation at that time, I wasn't going to, try to fit in. Now, I've never been a person that try to like fit in and not be myself. So, I really had no. I seen a lot of things in state prison, but I never, been through it myself. As like, violence took place, stabbings, and things that took place in the penitentiary. But, once I came home, I reached out to her, and then from that point, you know,
We kind of wrote each other a few times while he was in there.
yeah, we kept in contact while I was
But
incarcerated, but
we never really left contact. It was just time went by. When you're on the streets, the time is different from when you're in there, in jail. So our time goes by on the streets. That's where then they have nothing but time. So, but we never
and
left contact.
one thing when you're incarcerated, when you're away from your loved ones, all you can think about is the past and what you're gonna do when you get out. But during that time, their lives is moving on, people is changing. So when I came home, I reached out to her, and from that point on, we was friends before we got together. Then before our marriage, like we was friends. So we like our bond is something crazy. So, but
How we grow up, you don't see many people that come from our background and our situation and they stay together. Especially when every odd is against you. And
yes,
we had every odd. FedEx dropped off so many unknown boxes that was craziness at our door all the time. We knew every time it was going to be bad, but we kept opening them, I guess. But how we stayed together, God, it was God. There was no other way. Like, I feel like God took everything from us, so there was nothing but Him in our lives. Everything but Him and my husband. Especially when we're coming from kind of the same background and we're fending for ourselves and, we're left to stray, to difficult things in our past, and, we're not made to be alone. God didn't make us to be alone. He wants us to be together. But also, if you put your faith in man, it will fail you every time. And it did. God kept leading us back to Him. God kept leading us back to what was good. Even in all the craziness, he led us back to each other, but first him. He led us to a place that I could never, sometimes I can't even explain how gracious I am to be sitting here.
Yeah.
And again, every odd against you, you know, and the city background, when you have so many people that are trying to make it out and trying to do this, sometimes it comes to a point where people don't realize that you want to do better, and they think you're going to leave them. They think that you're trying to leave them behind and you're trying to hurt them, that you just don't care about them. And it's not really that. Sometimes we have to think about ourselves to be able to help someone else. It's okay to be able to say, I can't deal with this or you right now. Only way I'll be able to help you is if I help myself first. And if you're not right spiritually, you're not going to be able to make it too far. God's going to bring you back down so you can see who's in charge again. When you try to take things into your own hand, he's going to show you that you need to break. Sometimes you got to break down and speak to him. Quietly, screaming, however you can do it. And I can say with all of this craziness in our lives, from him going to jail to me being at home with a father on drugs, my mom dealing with him and her ending up on drugs, dealing with 12 brothers, being the only girl, waking up outside. And God kept us together for a reason, and he kept us coming back to him. Anything else on that?
Yeah, I know a lot of you have questions like, why have this walking cane? Why have a limp? Well, I say it was 2021, January 29th. I had off from work, and it was a snowstorm coming, so, I got my family together. We went to Sam's Club, went to Walmart.
These are the pictures behind us, by the way.
We went to Walmart, and, I was preparing for the snowstorm. I got Game Boys, books for the kids, things I'll go do with them over the weekend as we were snowed in. So when I got home, there's things I forgot. Walmart, in Walmart, we was grocery shopping.
And he was acting crazy. He didn't get to that part yet. So him as a father, I will say that he's an amazing, I can speak for this because he's an amazing father. Not just a husband or a child of God or a friend or brother. He's an amazing father. And we're in Walmart, and mind you, his toes, they're probably painted pink right now, just so everyone knows. 5 girls, that'll do it. Any man will not be much manly no more with 5 girls. So he's in Walmart, and I'm pushing the cart, and we're going down the aisle with toiletries and paper towels, and he's messing with the kids. He's taking paper towels, like big bags of them, and launching them at his kids. I'm like, oh God, please, do not let anybody walk down this aisle, Lord. By this time, I turn around, and it's like 4 bags of toilet paper, 5 bags of paper towels, and there's a lady walking down the aisle that works there. He looks, as he's launching one, the lady's walking up, and he turns around and sees her there, and he's like, I'm sorry, ma'am, I'm going to pick all this up.
Yeah.
Really? You better. And I'm just like, I'm going to keep moving because I don't even know this man. Not my family. But we went to Sam's Club, Walmart, Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, Chick-fil-A.
And the pictures behind us are showing that he was messing with his daughter here. He held her up against the refrigerator so her feet couldn't move. And told her that she was going to be stuck like this. And pictures of my other daughters that same day. Like, we were bringing groceries in and we stopped messing with them, but we still had the car on and opened with groceries in them.
So I left when I took the groceries out the car and everything, make sure the family settled a little bit. Amber was, putting the food and stuff away. I had to make another quick store run, to get cigarettes and put more gas in my truck. So once I left the house, I got in my truck and everything, and once I got in my truck, I was sitting on my phone, trying to connect my phone to my radio in the car. And as I was sitting there, I just looked up. A SUV pulled up next to me with the headlights off, and all I seen from it came from like the back window behind the driver's seat, an arm coming out, and I seen the handgun. So first thing I did, I just, I took cover, and it was just shot after shot. And the same truck y'all will see out there now is the same truck I got shot in.
There's still some bullet holes actually in the car that we could not remove.
So it's just at that night, it was just, I thought the shots was never going to stop. People ask me questions, do you see your life flash in front of your face? And be honest, no. So I just kept, while I was leaned over, I was just waiting for the headshot. I thought that was going to come. So once the shot stopped, the car pulled off. So I sat back up in my SUV, and I sat there for a second, and I looked back at my house just to make sure my kids and my wife was okay. The car left, and I thought about Tyler, because 2 days before I got shot, he came to my house because he had a vision. You explain that to him.
Tyler Barcoder is the principal of Tidings of Peace. And he's one of the main people that had an effect in my husband's life. Tyler came over and he tried to call us, I guess, the day before, like when he had this vision. Couldn't get a hold of us. His phone was in his brother's car, I do believe. Yeah. And he didn't get it back till the following day. Well, Tyler shows up at the door and he's like, hey, I wanted to make sure you were okay. I had a panic attack, which he's never had, okay? Never. And, he was in his living room. He sat and he closed his eyes for a second. And he said that when he closed his eyes, he envisioned his arm, just his arm. And he said he didn't know what it meant, but, to me, if you're having a panic attack you never had and you envision someone you know's arm, that's not good. It was God, yet again, speaking. And my husband is stubborn. I want to say that. And his motto is, everything's going to be all right.
Yeah.
My toes hanging off. It'll be all right. Anyone that knows him know that is him. Like, it'll be all right. That's his motto. And it's actually literally what he lives by. And I really do believe that's another reason why he is alive today. So me and Tyler are sitting there trying to tell him, like, this vision, like, I don't know what it could mean, but I'm like, it's bad. And he's like, it doesn't have to be bad. It'll be all right. I'm like, he had a panic attack. What do you not see here? So days go by, we go to the store, like you said, we were grocery shopping, and we still had a few groceries, like right by the door, we had to grab and bring in. So I grabbed the last ones, and I walked from the front door to the kitchen door, which would be front door, kitchen door, really not that far. And then I heard 16 shots. My kids are all in the kitchen with us. So where his car is actually protecting the window and the kitchen. So my kids are like falling to the floor, and the first thing I do is run. I run like, God, no. I run to the door. I ran to the door, and when I ran to the door, I'm like, God, I can't see him if he's dead. I'm looking, I didn't see any movement in the car. So I went to go leave away from the front door because at this moment I'm like, I can't bear to see the man I love, my husband, in this car dead. I couldn't do it. And then I heard him scream, "Babe, Amber." And I instantly ran out. When I get to the car, he's like up like this in the car. And I'm like, "Where are you shot? Where are you shot?" And he's just like, "I don't know. Get my phone and call Tyler." And it didn't register to me at that moment because everything's going through my mind. Like, where's he shot? Is he going to die? My kids. And at this point, I'm so focused on him that I'm not even paying attention to my children. My children are out and they're seeing like the car, but they don't know. They heard shots. The older ones know what that sounds like. So I'm like, I can't find it. Move. I'm trying to get in the front seat with him to try to drive to the hospital. Because at this point, I can't bear to see him sitting in his car shot. I don't know where he shot. I see blood on his head, body, everywhere there was blood. So I'm like, I can't find it. I run back in the house to get my phone. By the time I come out, he's on the ground, out of the car. And now I'm like, no, like you cannot be out on this, he's a big man. I can't get him in this car by myself. So now I'm like, "Babe, you gotta get up." And he's like, "Nah, I can't. By the time I look up, my kids are all outside. I run and put them in the house. Another lady comes and starts to help me down the street. Bless her heart for coming and going in my house with my children. Well, I'm sitting there and other people come up and they're asking questions and I'm screaming, "Shut up and help me get him in the car." At this point, I want to get him back in the car because, again, the cops aren't on our side. They're not. When stuff like this happens, the ambulance and the cops wait. They don't come to save you. And again, if we would have lived outside of the city, the cops would help us quicker than they would living in the city, especially if you are white. Being black is always, and it's sad, but it's always a problem, especially when you have people that you're always going to fit the description. You're always going to be a problem. So I'm like, I need to get him in this car, and a neighbor comes out, and I'm like, "Help me get him in the car." And he, at this point, is like, "Don't touch me." He feels the pain. I look at his arm, and his arm has gotten, no exaggeration, 3 times bigger. Cops didn't get there for really long. I'm screaming at the neighbor, like, "You need to help me get him in this car." And the neighbor's just, like, focusing on him screaming at him. And I'm snapping, like, screaming at him, like, "Don't worry about him. Pay attention to me. We have to get him in this car because if the cops get here, they're not going to help us. They're not. They're going to let him here bleeding out." And boy, I tell you, was I right. When they got there, I'm telling the cops, "Help me get him in this car and y'all follow me." "Oh, wait, let's wait for the ambulance because they can help." And at this point, we was already out there for 20 minutes now. So every second counts. I'm not trying to wait any longer. Well, time passed. One of the cops went in the house and actually gave all my kids teddy bears and was trying to talk to them and calm them down. And not every cop is bad. But when you have a system that is so broken, there's only so much you can do. How many people in this room would go to college, get a degree for anything, all right? Get somewhere and think you're gonna help, right? And then once you realize that where you're working at is broken and everyone in there is doing something really horrible and wrong, nothing of God, but after you done spent years and years and years of getting a degree and going to college and school, are you really going to let this job go? Most people wouldn't. Most people wouldn't. I bet you guys could say I would, but I promise you, most of you, even me, couldn't say that I would drop my job for that completely. So that was his way of doing his part. That was his way of trying to help because he couldn't do it. He would have to go against all of these people to try to do right and make his other fellow, people that he works with do the right thing. So they sat around kind of around him and really wasn't trying to take care of him. At this point, ambulance finally come. And this was one of the coldest nights of the winter.
Yes.
They started cutting his clothes off. All right? Now, think about this as Christian people, people of God. How many of you are okay being naked or even in a beater around other women, men? They cut this man's clothes off in front of everybody and left him in the middle of the street like this. No blanket. I went in the house and grabbed blankets. I grabbed pillows. I grabbed everything I could think of. And then I got down there with him and just started rubbing him, trying to make him cold. But he's laying on the cold ground. I couldn't lift him up to put anything underneath him. And at first, they were telling me I couldn't do that. And I see him, his body's just shaking and shaking and shaking and shaking. And I'm like, I can see it in him that this man is dying, like he's going to die. Finally, they're like getting him in the ambulance. By this time, Tyler gets there. And he's not understanding what is going on at all. Like anything, what's going on. And I couldn't tell him. I don't know why. We just had a great day. He was throwing paper towels an hour ago. So once they get him in the ambulance, I get in the car with his brother. And when we got home from Sam's Club and all of that, as soon as I came in the house, I put like a sweatpants on and a robe. So that's all I had on. When I got in the car with his brother, I had a robe on, sweatpants, and like a little nighty shirt, flip-flops. I had basically nothing with me, no phone, no nothing. So we followed the ambulance. The ambulance took their good old time. Again, I'm gonna go back to, by this time, it's a half hour then went by. So it took a half hour for the ambulance to get somewhere where they were 2 minutes away. Cops, 5 blocks away, 15 minutes. It makes no sense. Especially not adding up when these cops are not that far away. Anyway, we're on our way to the hospital once we get to the hospital. And to me, I have to back up a little bit. To me, this is the greatest part, but I have to back up and tell you just a little bit about me. So when I was 15 years old, my mother, she gave me my first drug, which was pills for cramps. That was her way of trying to help me in her mind. You know, she was using at this time, so she was sick too. Well, she kind of got me addicted. She got me addicted to these drugs, and I could not live without them. It got to a point where I just was tired of taking drugs. I wanted to get up and enjoy the sunrise. I wanted to get up and just be able to enjoy the simple things of the sunrise. And I couldn't do it when I was sick and I didn't have pills or the drug. Well, my mom made it a thing of, she knew that if I had money and if I was on these drugs, that she would stay high. So now at this point, 4 years had passed, and 4 years had passed, and now she's got me on heroin. And the heroin is 20 times worse than the pills. And I'm on this heroin, and I'm like, I just want to get clean, okay? Because of the drug, now, I'm not glorifying my addiction. I'm glorifying what God made of it. He took something so evil and made it so beautiful. My drug addiction saved my husband's life. When I get to this hospital, it's me, Tyler, the pastor of our church now, Marcus and Rose. They showed up. I'm outside, and it's during COVID. They're not letting me in this hospital. Some lady comes out as we're in a group talking and praying and tells me, come on, come in. I'm going to take you to your husband. All right? After they told me they weren't letting me in. And in my mind, I was going to get there either way. So I get in there. She takes me to him. And when I get in there, his body's still shaking, and he has a blanket on that is not even a blanket. It looks like a curtain. So I get in there, and he's shaking, and he can't talk. and he's not looking at me. He will not look at me for the life of me. He will not look at me, but he's awake. I'm like, checking his body, then I'm pulling glass out of his body because there's glass shards everywhere. Pulling glass out of his body, and what happens is I look at him, and he's like, I feel like I'm dying. And I look up. Now, mind you, there's nurses and doctors around laughing around his dying body. Laughing. So I'm like, what did you say? I had to literally put my ear to his mouth to hear him. Okay? So when he tells me this, I look up and I see the medicine they're giving him. The medicine they're giving him is when someone comes out of a major surgery and is stable, okay? Not someone who is bleeding out, who is not stable, whose heart rate is going down. And again, my addiction, because of me knowing drugs, saved him. I instantly snatched the IV out of him and started screaming at them like, you are crazy, you're trying to kill him, what is wrong with you guys? Once I did that, they're like, okay, she knows what she's talking about. I'm screaming, I'm snapping, I got my phone out and I'm like, we have a family, we only been married 3 months. Like, he is not this person that y'all are thinking he is. He is not involved in gang violence, because that's what they think of him. So, screaming and showing pictures. They're asking me how I got in here, and I'm telling them, one of your coworkers brought me here. Still to this day, we can't find this lady that took me into this hospital. And y'all can't tell me angels aren't real because no one knows this lady to this day. My addiction saved him, and God made sure of that. There's so many things that go on in this world, and the highlight is the Lord. Sometimes things are bigger than us. I thought my addiction was for me. God, why did you bring me through that? Why did I have to go through that? Nope. It was to save his life. Saying this is, I want to say this to you guys. Sometimes you got to look at things differently and be like, sometimes the things around you really is bigger than you. We live for Jesus, right? I ain't hear that. Yeah. So it's bigger than us. It's bigger than what we go through our daily functions. I didn't grow up having everything, but I am rich in the Lord now.
After my surgery, when I was in the hospital, the pain, I've been through a lot of pain. So at that moment, I didn't even know how many times I was shot. I just seen patches going down my whole left side. I remember being on a video call with my brother, and he asked me how many times I've been shot. I told him 6 times. But once the doctor came in and explained my situation to me, I was shot twice, and the extra patches was they put metal plates and rods inside me. So I had a shattered hip and a dislocated arm, and I had nerve damage. So when I got shot, let me stand up. When I got shot right here in the back of my leg. So I couldn't walk, and I laid in my hospital bed and everything, and I'm getting a lot of support, love from family, my church, and the main thing on my mind is why, what led to this, and I ain't had no answers at first. So as my time was going on, while I was in the hospital, every time you get shot in the city, the cops come and investigate. They'll come in your room and ask you questions. So, they asked me questions of who did it, why they did it, and I let the cop know, like, I got shot in front of my house. It ain't like I was on the wrong part of the town or anywhere else. I was in front of my home. So, that was the first wave of detectives. I say later on that night, another detective came in, and he came in with the security guard from the hospital. So he asked me the same question that the first cops asked me. And I was in and out of it because of the medication I was on. So It was February 2nd, my oldest, Natalia, it was her birthday. So I was getting released, and the hospital was trying to release me to Apple Hill for therapy. But the support I have, I try to get home care. So they was releasing me from the hospital, and as I was sitting in my hospital room, the nurse was telling me that we're waiting on a wheelchair for you, and once you get the wheelchair and fill out the paperwork, you're gonna be released.
Hours went by.
Hours went by. So I managed to get help out my bed to sit on the chair next to my bed. So remind you, I was heavily medicated. So as I was sitting in my chair, I had my eyes closed, and when I opened my eyes, I seen a badge, dangling in front of my face, and I looked up. It's the parole officer, state parole officers, and they telling me I'm being charged with a firearm. So I'm lost. So I think this is a mistake going on. So, to find out that it wasn't, they charged me. So, the phone that I had started ringing, and it was Tyler calling me because that night I was supposed to surprise my daughter because they was having a birthday party for her. So I was gonna come in there and surprise her. So that never happened. They locked me up, but during that time, once they got the wheelchair to my room, they's taking me to the York County prison. And to remind you, I have a shattered hip and a broken arm.
He couldn't feel anything but his right, yes.
Yeah, it's my right
his
arm.
right
Yeah.
arm.
So, for ones that don't know, a police car, in the back of a police car, oh, let me explain this real quick. You might can help me better with this, babe.
So this middle picture right here is the picture they took after he was shot. And that's what his leg looked like from one shot. This is his arm shattered, and that is bullets and actual bone fragments. This picture, if you can't see it so clear, that little mark is actually a bullet, piece of a bullet. And this is like after they had fixed it and put screws and metal rods in his hip the whole way down his leg. And after they took him in the police car, they tried to take him to jail, and the jail denied him because of his health injuries. He does not need to be here. He needs to be in a medical facility where he can get help. They took him to jail and pushed him in a room and left him there.
Let me get to the beginning part. When I got to the York County prison, there's a process in front of the jail. You got the metal detector, and you got a window that the COs ask you questions through there. So when I was in a wheelchair, mind you, I was in a wheelchair. They called the head nurse to come to the front of the jail, and once they got there, they looked at me. I still had the IV hanging out my arm with blood in it. So the nurse was like, "We can't accept him. He need to be in the hospital." So they denied me. York County Prison denied me. And if you criminally charged with something, when do a jail deny you from coming in? So I wasn't in the right condition to be in the jail. So the POs, the parole officers, they put me back in the police car, and across the street from the York County Prison is Royal Farms. They took me to Royal Farms parking lot for like an hour. Remind you, I'm in the back of a police car. So they was on the phone calling, the head parole board and everything, and because they didn't know what to do with me. So after they were trying to find out what to do to me, the POs took me back to the hospital. They talked to a nurse, I talked to a doctor, put me back in the hospital room. So as they were trying to figure out what to do with me, they found the bed in Smithfield, basically up in Huntington, and that was about a 3-hour drive. So remind you, it's about 2 o'clock in the morning at this time. So once, they put me back in the police car, and I have to drive 3 hours away with my condition to this jail. So once I got to the jail, I got my wheelchair and everything, and when you get charged and get sent to a prison, it's a process you have to go through, and that process is you getting strip search. So I went through that process, and once I stripped down and everything, the last thing I took off was my socks, and the reason why, cause my toes was painted. So once I took my socks, I was taking off real slowly. I took off my sock, and the COs looked at me, and they gave me that look. I have 5 daughters. So they told me, you have to do something about that.
You ain't want to be nobody's girlfriend in jail.
So, once I got dressed and put on the state clothes, they took me to my cell in the infirmary. So once I got into the infirmary, the beds that you sleep on with the bunk beds that's here now, it's the same mattress that they gave me. No pillows. I had a used sheet. The sheet was like supposed to be white, but it was the color brown. I ain't had my medication at first, but mind you, it's middle of the morning. So I'm sorry, having flashbacks of it. I didn't sleep in my bed. I say for like a week and a half, I slept in my wheelchair. I didn't shower. I was real depressed. And that's the last, like, anybody that know me personally, I don't cry. Like, I go to funerals. Like, no, I deal with my pain different, so I barely shed tears. But that night I cried. I didn't cry because I was incarcerated or the pain I was going through. I cried because I didn't make it to my daughter's birthday party. And I felt like I failed her. And they had me, I was in the cell. Mind you, I ain't sleep in that bed for a week and a half. They ain't bring me no wedge pillow, no medical bed or nothing. So, as I spoke to counselors and everybody, they got me the right treatment. I ain't talked to my family for like 4 days. Once I got charged and got locked up. So I was incarcerated for a year. I ended up making bail. But to bring you back to the reason why with the firearm charge is because somebody dropped a book bag off at the hospital and somebody dropped the book bag off at the hospital that had a firearm in it. Supposedly, and they charged me with that. It never made it to my room.
He never touched it?
Never touched it or anything. I was on the 4th floor in York Hospital, and it never made it to me.
So you can't really charge somebody. This is how dirty the system is. You can't really charge somebody with something who never been around it. That's like you trying to charge me with your water bottle right there, saying that is yours. I smell you on the water bottle, and in our reality, he's never touched it. So he got charged and went to jail in his condition for his innocence. For them, and I'm gonna be honest, when people come into the hospital, okay, black people, they do this and they look in your background.
And speaking of the background, I was on parole, and I guess the cop knew I was on parole, so basically, we got 1 minute. So basically, he charged me with the firearm, and it's like once he knew that I was on parole and I get the charge, he knew I wasn't going back home. And the cop that's on my case, he basically think it was gang ties, that reason why I got shot. And when a black person gets shot in inner city, first thing they think is gang related. To remind you, I got shot on camera. I got shot in front of a church. Where I lived down on Grantley, there was a church across the street.
They could find the people who shot him.
But they never investigated my situation. So it was a journey. That year that I was incarcerated, it was a journey. It took me 6 months to start walking, even to start moving my fingers. And the funny thing about it was, when I started moving my fingers, the first finger I can really move was my middle finger.
So when he called home, he's like, look what I can do.
So
I'm excited, but at the same time, like, oh, this is gonna be bad.
Yeah, it was a painful journey, but At the time, when I got incarcerated, I just felt like, I had a lot of anger in me, and I felt like I'm not going to sit here and hide anything back from y'all to everybody's face. Right now, I had murder on my mind. To be honest, the person that shot me, I wanted to retaliate. So, like, I was so angry at that time, but as time went by and the support and love I got, the good wisdom and everything, and it just opened my eyes more. And, I came to a point to forgive them because I can't sit here and ask for forgiveness when I'm not, forgiving the person that did this to me. So,
Jesus had a hold of us.
I know
a
we
long
have
time.
1 minute left, but I'm gonna stretch this out. But no, I'm still going through the journey. It's my first time really doing this, and I'm still going through the journey.
He's only been home from jail 2 weeks.
It's been about 2 weeks.
2 weeks. So him doing this, it's still fresh. So it shows.
Thank y'all.
Thank you guys so much for hearing. Oh, because it's out. It's not just our
It's
story.
more to the time.
If y'all have any questions, y'all can look into us, seriously. We won't mind at all. Because we want you guys to see more and understand about the city and understand, that there are people out there in worse situations. There's somebody right now going through what he went through 20 times work. They don't have support, and we had a great support system. You can thank these first 3 rows right here behind us, seriously. And Jesus had a hold of us. That's all I can say to y'all. Power of Jesus. Everybody say amen.
Amen.